Hello friends, welcome to Byju's classes. In this particular session, we are going to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on women. And here again, we're looking at one specific dimension: how during the pandemic outbreak, how when different kind of stay-at-home orders were there, how the different lockdowns were there imposed on different parts of India, not only in the world over, how we have seen increase in domestic violence against women. So as the pandemic unfolded in India, and not only in India, world over, different countries came up with different ways to deal with it. And in most of the countries, stay-at-home orders, lockdowns were imposed on the people. And the same thing happened in India. In the month of March, the first lockdown was announced in India. And after that also, there were more lockdowns. Maybe the degree of these lockdowns was different, but they continued for a long time. Also, we came up with some categorization of districts, and according to that, also some districts had longer lockdowns, some had lesser lockdowns. Those things were there. But the point is, when there were these lockdowns imposed, different places, they reported greater incidence of domestic violence against women. So in this session, we are going to understand why there was an increase in domestic violence against women. On top of that, what makes women extremely vulnerable? And then what is the India-specific data? How was the total increase in domestic violence, and why it makes it very difficult for us to address the issue of domestic violence? And finally, we look at some of the World Health Organization guidelines. What could have been done, what needs to be done to prevent these kind of scenarios. So this is a broad structure for today's session. And so let's start the discussion. Before we jump into the topic, one thing I want to make it clear that we have talked about domestic abuse in the past when we discussed women issues, and you can refer to that particular recording to have an understanding about domestic abuse. So we have laws which prevent domestic abuse, and we have different kind of institutional mechanisms to address the issue of domestic abuse, but it still continues. And here also that typical cases there, the typical framework you can use, that we have progressive laws to address domestic abuse, but the level of society these changes have not happened. There are many reasons why domestic abuse continues in society, and some of these reasons actually to do with society. Whereas some of the common reasons why domestic abuse takes place, it can be because of male ego. Sometimes the husband's salary is less than the wife's salary, can lead to domestic abuse. Sometimes the female is not able to carry out the responsibilities which the society ascribes on her. She's expected to take care of household activities. She's also expected to work outside, and as she's working outside, it might be difficult for her to take care of the household responsibility. So it leads to dual burden on her. It might lead to a situation where she's not able to handle household work. Husband is also not sharing household responsibility with her, and she's not able to do it properly. Then again, there can be instances of domestic abuse. If she's not able to bear kids, or she's not able to bear a male child, it can happen. Domestic violence can be there. So many of these things are actually rooted in the patriarchal norms that exist in society. It is rooted in that particular sentiment that a male has ownership over the woman's body, and this is the reason why domestic violence continues. Now, what is interesting to note is the reason why it increased during the lockdown. What could have been the reason? So let's explore that. What could have been the reasons? Different studies have been conducted, different assumptions have been put forth. Now, first thing, during the lockdown, what is happening? When you have these stay-at-home measures, stay-at-home instructions, what is happening? The victim, perpetrators, all of them are staying together. So this leads to greater time spent with the perpetrator. It leads to greater exposure to the perpetrator. So husband and wife, let's say this particular husband has a history of these kind of activities. Now the husband and wife are staying together because the husband probably the husband cannot go out and work. There are different kind of restrictions on different kind of economic activities, restrictions on travel. So time spent and the exposure increases to the abusers. Okay, you're spending more time with the abusers. So the victim is in a very vulnerable position. On top of that, it might so happen that, and it in fact has happened, it's continued to happen, that there is a lot of uncertainty. There are a lot of conditions right now. The situation is such that it can lead to increase in stress. There is uncertainty related to economy. We don't know where we are heading. And during that lockdown also, we had the idea that we're not heading in the right direction when it comes to economy. A lot of people would have lost their jobs. They would have faced salary cuts. And also, we're staying in a very overcrowded condition. All the family members are staying together within that household. Generally, what happens? Maybe during the nights you're all together, but during the morning, maybe school is open, the kids are going to school. Some of those who earn the bread for the family, they're going out and working. It's not that crowded all the time, but now it's completely crowded. All of them are in the household. They're all cooped up in the household. So there can be some factors which can lead to increase in stress, and which can again lead to increase in perpetration of violence against women. But here, one thing you can point out. There can be a fallacy here. There can be a logical mistake here. So stress-like conditions is equally applicable to females as well, right? It is not just the husband who are feeling the stress. The female is also subject to similar conditions, right? She's also staring at economic uncertainty. She's working. She might also face job losses. She's also taking over conditions. So why the opposite doesn't happen? So why the female is not subjecting her husband to domestic violence? So don't look at this point only from one perspective. Think of it in another dimension as well. So stress conditions are there, but on top of that, we have a society which is again primarily male-dominated. The patriarchal norms, patriarchal notions continue to exist in society. There is this prevalent notion that men have dominance over the female's body. It's not right, but it continues to exist in society. Men decide for women. Men decide everything for women, and they also assume that they have rights over their body. So if both these things are coming together, these patriarchal norms, on top of that, the stress because of the kind of critical situation, because of the pandemic, both these things can lead to increasing perpetration of violence in the home. Apart from this, whenever there is any risk of domestic violence, a female can approach certain support networks. She can probably approach her family friends, or she can also go for some form of institutional mechanisms, which can give her some sort of assurance, which can also give her some sort of refuge. But all these things might not have been working, or all these things might not have been an option during the time of these lockdowns. So this also created a problem. So what are the different kinds of support structures she could have probably availed support from? One is the informal support structure. She could have taken the help of her family, relatives, friends, neighbors, colleagues. But during the lockdown, there were different kind of restrictions on movement of people, logistics, all these things were restricted. So it would have been extremely difficult for women to take help from all the informal institutions, informal support structure. On top of that, the formal structure, for example, there can be 24/7 helpline for women. There can be different kinds of social services. There can be some relief mechanisms, temporary shelters can be there. So all these things would also not be working as they were working for the pandemic was there. So many of them will not have the support staff. They will not have the staff who can operate these things. So as a result of which, her access to the formal and informal support structure also got reduced during the time of the pandemic, and it made her even more vulnerable. Also, perpetrators of these kind of violence got an opportunity to exercise greater power and control over their victims. A whole day you are spending together, and the perpetrators can control critical resources. They can control access of critical resources for these victims. They can also monitor with whom they're interacting, with whom they're talking, what kind of information they're sharing. This also made the life of the victims even more precarious. Also, because of confinement, there can be an increase in consumption of alcohol and other substances. In the initial phase, alcohol was not allowed, but in the later phases of the lockdown, alcohol and all these things were allowed in different states. I mean, this comes under the state laws, but many states allowed it. And even if sale of alcohol was not, a lot of people might have it in stock, or they would have found ways to acquire it. And if alcohol is not something that they can procure, they might have procured other things, other substances. So this also could have led to increase in violence, because there are different correlations which point out that consumption of these products and domestic violence are correlated with one another. But keep one thing in mind, that is also equally applicable for female. Consumption of alcohol for female can also increase. Why does not happen the other way? Why women are not subjecting men to domestic violence? Patriarchal norms, keep that in mind. Patriarchal norms plus increased consumption of all these things. Both these things have to come together. So all these factors could have led to increase in violence against women. Now, on top of that, why the position of women is so vulnerable? Why are women so vulnerable to domestic abuse? What made them extremely vulnerable to domestic abuse during these periods? Now, see, in case of India, the kind of society that we have, we do not have an egalitarian society. Household responsibilities are not equally shared between the husband and the wife. I told you that we are probably moving towards egalitarianism, at least in the urban middle classes, maybe, but not always the case. Most likely, it is expected that the female should handle all the household responsibilities, and even if she is working outside, when she comes back, she has to take care of all the different kind of household responsibilities. She has to take care of the kids. She has to take care of the elderly. Those who are for her in-laws and senior citizens. Now, previously it might be the case that she's working outside, the kids are going to the school, elderly are also having their own informal support networks, so they're also spending time over there. But now what has happened? Everyone is cooped up in the same house. She's inside the house, children are not going to the school, elderly are not going outside. So the responsibility of taking care of the entire household now falls on her shoulder. And it might happen she's also working. She's working from home. So she has to handle that responsibility. On top of that, she has to handle the responsibility of so many people within the family, and most likely the husbands are not sharing the workload. So it might happen that she is not able to fulfill what is expected of her, and in that scenario, it can lead to parental striking back, and it can lead to violence against her. So the disproportionate and high household burden of care on her can lead to these kinds of circumstances. On top of that, since they are stay-at-home orders, it can also lead to increasing frequency for demands for sexual activities, and further it can lead to increase in risk of sexual coercion or unwanted sex. Apart from that, access to contraceptives was also something which got hindered during these lockdowns. Condoms and other contraceptives were not available easily, so access to reproductive and health services were also not there. Apart from that, telephone ownership, internet access may be limited or monitored by the partner, because we are all staying together within the periphery of the house. It can easily be monitored. Also, women might be financially dependent on their partners, and if they're dependent on their partners, it is difficult for them to report or go against their partners, whatever the partners are saying. They have to follow that, because what is the other option? If they report it or if they go against their partners, then again they might not be able to support themselves, even if there is a divorce or a separation. And older women, sometimes they are also extremely dependent on their family members, especially their grown-up children. So whenever there is extreme level of financial dependence, it can also lead to different kinds of economic abuse. This makes as well as made women more vulnerable during the time of the pandemic. Now, what we look at what happened in Indian context. What are some data from India related to the extent of domestic violence during this period? Now, between March 25 and May 31st, 1,477 complaints of domestic violence were made by women. Around 1,500 complaints during a 2-month period, during the 68 days period was made. And this is the highest number of complaints that have been received during this particular duration in the last 10 years. If you compare the number of domestic violence complaints that have been made during this particular time period, every year, March 25 to May 31st, if you compare it for the last 10 years, this was the year where you had maximum number of complaints. Apart from that, there was a study by Sarvana Ravichandran and Manisha Shah, and their paper was an NBR, National Bureau of Economic Research. And what they do is they look at a few things. First thing, they try to find out how many times domestic abuse and domestic violence helped when these keywords were searched on Google. And they are saying that the number of times this was searched also increased drastically. It increased in mid-March and peaked on April 19 and on May 10th in India. So these kind of terms people were searching. So most likely those who were subjected to domestic abuse, they were searching for these things. Or in case someone knows someone who is subjected to domestic abuse, they might be searching for it. What can be some of the solutions? What can be some of the ways out? Apart from that, Sarvana and Manisha, they also try to find out how many formal complaints were registered by women in the different kind of districts. The different kind of districts within India, depending on the number of active cases, were also classified. Some districts were classified as red districts, some were classified as green districts. And again, in red districts, the containment measures were very strong. The lockdown measures were very, very strongly imposed. While in green districts, free movement was allowed. So what they find out was in red zone district, monthly domestic violence complaints per red zone district was below 1.5 in March, but it became almost 2 by May 2020. So the number of complaints in the red zone district is increasing. For green zone districts, the number remained around 0.3 during the entire lockdown period. So wherever it is green, that means the containment measures are not that strong. That means the victim and the perpetrator, they don't have to stay together the entire time. That means the exposure of the victim to the perpetrator is less. The time spent between the victim and the perpetrator is less. The number of complaints was less. Red zones also saw an increase in cybercrime complaints made by women when compared to green zones. While these complaints averaged 0.1 per red zone district in February, it also increases. So in red zone, cyber complaints are also increasing from 0.1 per red zone to 0.35 in May. 1.1 was in February, 0.35 is in May. So within a period of 3 months, it is increasing by almost 3.5 times. In green zone, the numbers increased, but it was very less. It was initially also 0.03 per district, and it is becoming 0.06. So 0.1 and 0.03, don't get confused. Don't think of 0.03 as 0.3. Okay. So 0.1 to 0.35, and here it is 0.03 to 0.06. So the number of formal complaints has increased. The number of times these particular keywords were searched also increased. You might be thinking that 2 cases per district might not be too huge, but keep one thing in mind. In case of India, women do not go and register formal complaints. So 2 does not necessarily mean that the total instances of domestic abuse within the district is just going to be much more than that. In fact, 90% of the cases, women don't go and register formal complaints. Most of the cases, they will try to take help from family members, friends, relatives. Only when it is an extreme case, they will go and register a case. So don't think that these numbers are very small. These numbers do not reflect everything. They indicate the number of actual cases, the number of actual instances of violence will be way more than this. So this is how the data looks like. So in the last 20 years, this has seen the maximum number of cases. That 68-day period between March and May has seen the maximum number of cases. And which are the places where you have seen so many cases? So here you can see a particular 2 by 2. On the x-axis, it is the total number of complaints. On the y-axis, complaints made per 1 million women. So this particular quadrant has all those places where per million complaints is high, and also the total complaints that have been made is also high. So here you can find that Delhi is among the top here as far as number of complaints per 1 million women is made. So about 32 complaints were received per 1 million women in Delhi. So this is the description for Delhi's data. Haryana, UP, Maharashtra, they are all figuring in this particular quadrant. So they record the large number of complaints, and complaints per capita, complaints per million population also continues to be high here. So Maharashtra, Haryana, UP, and Delhi, again, the situation is not that good. Now, what makes things worse here is many times the complaints are people actually women actually don't complain. So here what we saw is the formal complaint that is happening. But if you look at data, if you look at traditional data, historical data, basically, generally women will not venture out. So the number of actual incidents of domestic violence can be way more than this. So here there is one data point. Among 14.3% of victims who sought help, only 7% reached out to relevant authorities, the police, doctors, etc. So you can observe that almost 90% or 85% do not seek any help. So hardly 14% are seeking any help, and on that 14% also, hardly 7% are reaching out to institutions. More than 90% of the victims, they only take help from their immediate family members. So there's also a grave matter of concern that even women, when they're subjected to domestic violence, they're not reporting, they're not telling even their relatives, they're keeping quiet. And among those who are reporting, again, hardly 7% are actually going to the formal institutions which can provide them help. The remaining almost 90% are actually taking the help of immediate family members. So this is how things look like. The different kind of violence, and in how many cases women actually tell it to others, in how many cases they have never told it to others, how many cases they have taken help from some source. If there is any physical violence, 80% of the time women don't inform anyone else. 9% of the time they have told someone, and 12%, almost 12% of the time they have taken some help from a source. So this includes just telling someone you're not taking any help. This includes where you have taken some help to address the situation. Sexual violence, again, 81% of the time women do not take any help. 9.5% of the time they have told someone, and 9.8% of the time they have taken help from some sort of source. If a female is subjected to both physical and sexual abuse, in this scenario, the chances of her telling others is high. The chances of her not saying this to anyone is lesser. In this scenario, they have taken help from more women have taken help from some sources. But whatever be the case, just look at the final data of all the cases. In 76% of the cases, they have never told anyone. In 9.1% of the cases, they have informed someone, and hardly in 14% of the cases, they have taken some help. So the point here is the lockdown has increased the chances of domestic violence, but traditionally, typically, women have not been seeking any help for it. And even if they're seeking help from anyone, they're not seeking help from proper formal institutions. Maybe they're seeking help from some immediate family members who would also try to mediate. They will not ensure that the female gets justice. So even if you have different kind of legal mechanisms in place, it will not work because women have not reported these incidents. So this is something which is kind of alarming and which probably needs to be addressed. Now, when it comes to pandemic and the way we have to respond to these kind of unintended consequences of the measures taken to deal with the pandemic, the World Health Organization has come up with some guidelines. Again, these guidelines are equally applicable to different victims of violence. It is not just women. It is also equally applicable to elderly who are subjected to different kind of domestic abuse. It is also equally applicable to children who might be subjected to domestic abuse, who might have been subjected to domestic abuse during the time of the stay-at-home measures. So what we do is we look at some of these suggestions provided by World Health Organization. The first thing they're saying is when you have to deal with these kind of circumstances, first thing that you have to do is you have to plan. As countries, as governments, as states are dealing with this pandemic, they have their own plans, right? How do you address, how do you deal with this pandemic? So you are you're all planning. But the plan is primarily focused on the health aspect. How do you deal with this health crisis that has been created by the outbreak? So what they're saying is the plan that you have created, it should include violence prevention and response as well. You should be prepared for it. You should not take it for granted that violence will not happen. You have to understand that the kind of society you have, chances of violence is there. So your plan should include ways by which you can respond to the violence. Apart from that, you have to ensure prevention and response programs, services, all these things that typically is there when the lockdown was not there, that should continue even during these time of pandemic. So ensure the prevention and response programs and services they continue to maintain as they had been maintained even before the lockdown. Next thing, even if you have all these services, you have to ensure that people are informed about it. People have awareness. People know that these services are being provided to them. To inform people about the availability of these services, so that you can prevent and you can respond to the violence. Apart from that, all the different essential service providers, those who are dealing with the pandemic, who are fighting the pandemic at the front, inform them or train them to spot what are some of the signs of violence, what are some of the signs of abuse and neglect. So if they're able to understand these signs, they can also inform the concerned authorities, and the concerned authorities can again take action according to the requirements. So essential service providers need to be trained about the signs of different kinds of abuse, violence, and neglect. We have to support the survivors of. We have to find out different ways by which the survivors are given adequate safeguards. But at the same time, if a survivor tries to report a case, we need to handhold them. We need to provide them all avenues of support. So you have to make provisions to allow those who are seeking help from violence to safely leave their house even during lockdown. So lockdown, no lockdown doesn't matter. If someone is suffering from violence, they should be allowed to move out. Those kind of restrictions should not be imposed on them. Ensure that whatever helplines you have, 24/7 helplines, they should be working even during the time of the lockdowns. Apart from that, try to find out ways by which different kinds of services that survivors will need are running full time and they can be easily accessed. Probably from phones, probably from other different avenues, telemedicine, mobile health, messengers, different kind of ways by which they should be able to access them. Apart from that, we have to collaborate across sectors. We have to collaborate with different sectors to address violence, criminal justice, health, social service, all these things, all these sectors they have to come together. We need to have a multidisciplinary approach. We need to have multidisciplinary teams who can help the victims fight against the perpetrators of domestic violence. So these are the things which has been suggested by the World Health Organization. Probably our policymakers should also take all these things into consideration to address the increasing instances of domestic violence that women are being subjected to. And again, keep this in mind that children and elderly, they have also been subjected to domestic violence. These steps are equally applicable to children and elderly as well. So this is all about COVID-19 and its impact on women, specifically COVID-19 and how it has increased the instances of domestic violence against women and how women are extremely vulnerable. So with this, we will be wrapping up this session and keep one thing in mind that this year, because of COVID-19, things have changed dramatically. Different sectors have been impacted, different sections of the population have been impacted. That is the reason COVID-19 and its impact on different sectors, different sections of the population is extremely important from the exam perspective. So keep looking for these kind of linkages. Keep looking for articles which talk about these linkages. They can be extremely important from the exam perspective. So that's it from my side. Thank you. Hello friends, welcome to Byju's classes. In today's session, we're going to talk about the linkage between COVID-19 and skill development, how the pandemic has impacted the skill development sector. Now, first thing, before we jump into the topic, I would want to clarify, or I would want to make it clear that we had previously talked about skill development and we know how skill development is something which is very, very important for a country like India. In this session, we had seen, in that particular session, we had seen how India has a young population. We have, and this is sometimes used as a term that is used for this demographic development, that how we have a small window of opportunity right now. If you're able to skill our young population, then they will be contributing to the economy, how they can increase economic activity, and as a result of which, the country will progress at the same time. People overall within the country, they will be benefited by it. So we have seen that a large chunk of population is in that young working age category. And on top of that, every year, around 1.5, 1.6 crore people are entering into the labor force. And also, there's a large chunk of population which is unskilled or which has not got formal skills, which also in the agriculture sector, as I said, employees, they're not contributing much to agriculture. So we have a large chunk of population which needs to be skilled. Traditionally, we have some people who need to be skilled, and also new populations entering into the workforce, they also need to be skilled. But the pandemic, the COVID-19 outbreak, has impacted this entire process. So what are the challenges which has been imposed by this outbreak on skill development? What are some of the steps that we have taken up in recent times? What more needs to be done? What other countries are doing? How we can probably address the sector? How we can improve the skill development process? So all these things we are going to see in this particular session. So first thing, what are some of the challenges that we see right now? And it's not just about the pandemic in itself, it's about how we have tried to deal with the pandemic, the kind of measures that we have taken up. For example, the different kind of lockdown measures that we have imposed, they have in itself put different kind of restrictions. So that can also be one of the reasons why skill development sector is getting impacted. So let's see all the different challenges right now for the skill development sector. First thing, many candidates who are actually taking up or who are engaged in skill development process, who are trying to upskill themselves, they might have migrated out. So many of them were in cities, they might have moved to villages, smaller towns. Now, how do we ensure that these people come back and take up whatever skill development they were supposed to take up? They were in the middle of the course, they might have stopped these courses. So how do we mobilize candidates post-migration who have moved out, and how do we bring them back to skill development process? That is one challenge. Next is, do we have sufficient institutional capacity to provide skills? And this is not a new question, this is a question that has been there in the past as well. But right now, again, the challenge increases because if you have to provide skills, we have to also ensure that these candidates, they are not getting impacted by the diseases, they're not catching the disease while you are providing them different kind of skill development courses. So maybe we do not have that much institutional capacity. Another issue is, can we provide sufficient online courses, or do we have people who can actually take up these courses? Do we have the right IT infrastructure which can ensure that people who are in different corners of the country, they can take up these courses online? Maybe that is also something which is difficult. Not everyone will have access to internet. Even if they're having access to internet, it might not be speedy internet connection. They might not have access to our facilities by which they can consistently charge their phones. Also, it might happen that within the family there is only one phone connection, and if it is completely occupied in taking up these courses, what will happen to others? How will others get impacted by it? Another thing, many times skill development projects initiatives are funded by corporate social responsibility funds. But now, as organizations themselves are dealing with the pandemic, their own profits might be dipping, their own revenues might be dipping. So in case they do not have sufficient amount of funds, they will not be having sufficient amount of funds for CSR activities. And if they are not having sufficient funds for CSR activities, so again, skill development will get impacted. Also, many of these skill providers, they themselves will be having a large debt. They might find it difficult to survive. They might not be able to repay these debts or repay the interest on these loans they have taken for running the facilities. So they also might find it difficult to survive. Apart from that, even if candidates they are completing the courses, even if the candidates are finishing the courses on time, they're getting certification, they're BSS, they're getting certification, they're completing all these things, they will find it difficult to get jobs because we have all seen how the economy is performing, which direction it is going. The employment opportunities they might get reduced, and not just employment opportunities, apprenticeship opportunities will also get reduced. So candidates will find it difficult to get full-time employment positions. They might find it difficult to get even apprenticeship positions. So these are some of the challenges that we are witnessing, that we are observing my other skill development sector might face in the times to come. Now, what have been some key announcements related to the skill development sector? Again, some announcements have been specifically directly related to skill development. There have been some announcements which are not directly related to skill development but have been made by the ministries. The first thing, one major announcement was made that the 2.4 lakh apprentices who were carrying over doing the apprenticeship, they will be provided full stipend during the lockdown period. So it is estimated that the total outlay for this will be around 36 lakh crores. This was an announcement made by the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. Apart from that, another announcement was made that many of the national skill training institutes will be converted into quarantine centers. Apart from this, it was also announced that those who have been enrolled under National Skill Development Corporation, they will be provided training through the Skills India portal. So there is one particular portal through which skill development kind of programs are provided for skill development. So these kind of programs will be continued, and those who are already enrolled can avail these facilities. So these are some steps which have been announced during the time of the lockdown. But we must consider what other countries are also doing. So we have taken some steps, but world over, I mean, this is a pandemic. Pandemic means again countries world over have got impacted, people world over have been impacted. And so skill development is not only a problem for India. In other countries also, skill development is going to be a problem. Just like education has got hampered, skill development has also hampered. So these are some steps which have been announced in India. But what we also should take into consideration is what are things that other countries are doing. Since this is a pandemic, so it has impacted countries world over. So it's not just India which is getting impacted. In other places also, in other countries, US, UK, everywhere, skill development has suffered. Just like education, how education has been hampered, skill development has also been hampered. So what we can probably do is we can look at what other countries are doing, some of the advanced countries, how they are dealing with the situation. Have they been able to ensure learning continuity? So what we observe is, in many countries, they have continued with the process of skill development. What they're doing is they have massively increased usage of different synchronous videos. So video learning and all these things are being used. Learning management systems have also been used in most of these countries. So massive increase in the usage of learning management systems and synchronous video usage. Apart from that, they are adopting online and digital modes of education. So there has been a shift towards online education and digital mode of education. Apart from that, government funding is also increased. So what many countries government is trying to fund skill development processes. The main reason is they want to ensure that learning does not get disrupted. Because eventually, at some point of time, you will be dealing, you would address the pandemic, economic activity will have to be resumed. So at that point of time, you will require workers in different sectors. So learning should not get disrupted. So government has funded in case there are service providers which are not able to fund for themselves. The government has pitched in. Apart from that, apprentices, since they are not able to work in different industries because industries might not be operating in full levels because of social distancing norms, they might be working in at 1/3 capacity or 1/4 capacity. So those who were working as apprentices in these sectors, for them there is now an increased focus on classroom learning. So when economic activities will be resumed, you can go and work in these industries. But right now, what you can do is you can probably start taking up classroom programs. So as an apprentice, you are supposed to work in the industry, and at the same time you will also have some components of classroom learning. So right now, focus on classroom learning. When economic activity resumes, go back to the industry and work over there. Apart from that, different kind of tracking systems have been established so that those who are learning through different kind of online media, their performance is consistently tracked. So service providers are able to understand where these learners are right now, what is their present status. So these are certain things that is happening all over different countries. And again, I've not highlighted which country is doing what, but the gist of this entire thing is this, that you are now moving towards online education. You are adopting online education, digital modes of education, learning management systems, synchronous video usage. This has increased. Government is funding to ensure that learning does not get disrupted. For apprentices, there has been a great focus on classroom learning, and you are trying to create different kind of tracking systems so that you understand where you stand right now, where the learners stand right now. Now, in case of India, what is going to be what has been the impact of COVID-19? What has been the specific impact of COVID-19 on the skill development sector? Now, when we say skill development sector, it includes those who have been providing trainings. It also includes those who would have taken skill development, the candidates. So the entire ecosystem, who are all part of the entire ecosystem, how they have got impacted by this particular pandemic. First thing, the training partners. Since there has been lockdown, since the training partners will not have candidates because candidates also cannot join these service providers, they cannot go and learn in these setups. So there will definitely be a revenue loss for these training partners because training programs are not happening. Apart from that, many of these training partners would have taken loans. But again, different kind of relief has been provided. For example, the RBI deferred loan limits. But again, interest is something that you have to pay. So they might have excess interest. This excess interest can accrue for them. Apart from that, assessment and certifications will also get impacted. So there are third parties who assess the performance of different candidates. They give them different kind of certificates. But because of the pandemic, because of the lockdown, because of reduction in different kind of movements, assessment and certifications have also been impacted. So the assessment agencies, they will also be incurring different kind of losses. On top of that, the candidates face different challenges. Now, even if there is a candidate who has acquired different kind of skills, who has passed through the different assessment, has got the certificate, but as the economy is not doing well, corporates will also not be hiring these guys. In fact, it might happen that they might get hired, but they will be hired at a lower wage. So the entire purpose of acquiring skills also gets defeated. So placement loss for candidates, and even if they're getting placed, they might not get the wage, the salary that they could have probably commanded before the pandemic broke out in India. This is something that's not only specific to India, would have happened in other places in the world as well. So this is how the entire ecosystem is getting impacted. The training providers are getting impacted, the certification assessment agencies are getting impacted, and the students have also got impacted. Now, what can be done, or what can be some of the steps that can be taken up for this particular sector? First thing, we have to reassess what kind of manpower, what is the extent of manpower different sectors will require. Now, this pandemic has disrupted economic activity. This has disrupted different sectors, and we don't know how the recovery is going to happen. But we know for sure that certain sectors will be massively impacted. Some sectors will do well. So we have to reassess which sectors are going to do well, which sectors are probably not going to do well, at least in the next few years, next couple of decades. So you have to reassess that. Now, what is the advantage of reassessing? If you're able to assess which sectors are going to perform, how they're going to perform, you will be able to get an idea how much manpower these sectors will need, how many personnel these sectors will need. Now, if you're able to understand this, accordingly, you can provide skills. If there is a particular sector which is not going to recover, there's no point in providing skills for that particular sector. There's no point in training people for that particular sector. So this assessment of sectoral manpower requirement is very important. Next thing is, we have to do a capacity planning. Which kind of organizations provide what kind of skills? Do they have sufficient capacity? First thing, what we did was we tried to find out what are the skills that are required. Second thing, what we're doing, we're trying to find out which organizations can provide what kind of skills. And in case these organizations are not able to provide these kind of skills, then we have to probably think of ramping up their capacity. So capacity planning is the second thing. Third thing, we probably have to do all these things in a phase-wise manner. It cannot happen overnight. We have to look at the near-term future, we have to look at the medium term, and we have to look at the long term. And accordingly, we have to implement different kind of policies. In the near term, we need some specific kind of workers. We need to provide skills for those kind of workers, for develop those kind of workers. For example, if you look at the near term, if you look at immediate objectives, we will need a particular kind of workforce which will be focused on just tackling the COVID-19 crisis, and they will be focused on accelerating recovery. Who are these workers? Most like the frontline workers, the essential workers, who are healthcare workers, who are directly dealing with the pandemic, who can be the delivery guys, delivery agents. So those kind of workforce. So we need to provide skills to have a workforce which is directly trying to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is the immediate objective. In the midterm, you can think of upskilling and cross-skilling the workforce so that we can deal with the slowdown. Now, what is upskilling? You are improving the skill of the workers. What is cross-skilling? The workforce has skills so that they can not only focus on the areas on which they have to work, but also they can take up something else as well. So upskilling and cross-skilling, these are the things that we have to think of in the midterm. And in the long term, we have to get the workforce ready for those sectors where we can probably have high growth so that the recovery process gets faster. So think of these three things. Look at the timeline. So immediately we need to have a workforce who can directly address the pandemic, who can directly fight with the pandemic. So for that, what kind of skills are required? We need to inculcate those skills. In the midterm, we have to think of upskilling our workforce, we have to think of cross-skilling our workforce. But the long-term target is ensuring that we have those skills which some sectors require. What are these sectors? These are the high growth sectors, 5G and all these areas. So artificial intelligence, 5G, all those kind of areas. We will require workforce in these kind of sectors. So we have to train our workforce for these sectors because these are the sectors which can ensure economic recovery. So if you don't have skills for these sectors, you will not be able to recover post the pandemic. So this is what we have to probably think of. So first thing is identify the sectors which will be relevant. Some sectors will be relevant, some sectors will not be relevant. So do all these assessment for the next couple of decades. Second thing, look at our capacity. Do we have capacity or not? So capacity planning has to be done. Third thing, implement all these things in a phased manner. So immediate objective is this, midterm objective is this, long-term objective is this. And apart from that, include all those things that we had talked about in the past. When we talked about skill development, there also we had seen so many other things that is very, very important. For example, how we need the private players to pitch in, how we need to ensure that skill development, economic development, regional development, sectoral development, how all these things have to go hand in hand. Look at those dimensions. Apart from that, some sections of the population are extremely vulnerable. We have to ensure that skill development process is equitable as well. Those who are extremely vulnerable, they should also become part of the skill development process. What kind of interventions we need to provide. Also, when we think of skill development, it need not necessarily be only technical skills. We also have to focus on soft skills and other things. We also have to focus on STEM, science, technology, engineering, maths. Also, there are some sections of the population whom you can provide technical skills, but do not understand basic numbers, they will not be able to read things. We have to provide those skills as well. Apart from that, economic recovery is also very important. If economic recovery doesn't happen, whatever skills you provide will be of no use because these people will not be able to place them in proper occupations, proper jobs. So that also is very, very important. We have to find out different kind of skill development pathways, something that we have talked about in the past as well. So learnings in the previous session, take that plus some of the new things. All these things have to be integrated together. That way you can have a very good answer in case there is a question about how do we address the issues that the skill development sector has been facing, how do we address the challenges of skill development. So this is about skill development, what have been some of the specific challenges for the sector, how we have responded, we have not responded much, what other countries are doing, and what we can do to improve for the sector. So with this, we will conclude this particular discussion. We'll wrap up this session with this. Thanks for joining in for the session. Thank you.